and gentlemen, we are back for a new week of PHLY Union podcasts. We have some fun stuff to talk about. The Sullivan brothers, can they take over the MLS? We have some moves around the league, preseason underway. Champions Cup is this month as well. Welcome on in. Of course, I'm one of your hosts, JP Zapata, joined as always with the lovely Renee Washington. Renee, it's a new week. We're getting closer. You could taste Union soccer coming in. How are we feeling today?
Listen, we are 2 weeks away, guys. 2 weeks away from the CONCACAF Champions Cup getting started against Deportiva Saprissa. We are just a little over 2 weeks away from the opener for the MLS.
Exciting
We've
times.
got games. It's very exciting times. I'm thrilled. We are weeks away. Soccer's finally going to get played. We're finally going to get to see what the team looks like officially in person. Dan, welcome in. Nice to have you here in the chat. Let's go. Is right.
What do we say,
Happy
Dan?
to have you here. Everybody hit that thumbs up button. Join the conversation. And then about the Super Mario Brothers that we have here. I'm excited about Mario and Luigi.
We got our Mario, we got our Luigi here. It's a good time because I just finished watching the Super Mario movie. So
You just watched it for the first time?
I did. Well, now Netflix has been coming up big these days. I thought it was really good. I thought it was a good tie because that was probably the first video game I played. My mom might have to correct me on that, but it's very special, obviously, for all the kids who grew up with the Mario, and I thought it was very well done. And I'm hoping that the Sullivan brothers can follow up with that same act. But no, it was a really good, cute movie.
So I saw that movie in theater with my family.
Nice.
I know, and
Even
I don't even go to
better.
the movie theaters that much. But my nephew's a huge Mario fan, which in itself I love because it's like we're paying it forward. And I enjoyed it just as much as I feel like most kids did because they did such a good job of connecting the video game to the movie.
Exactly.
And like I was wondering, how do you make a video game into a movie without it losing the whole concept? But I liked it. And now like I'm thinking of the Sullivan brothers as our very own Mario and Luigi.
We might have to make that graphic there. We might have to Photoshop that.
I know. We might, yeah, let's
and I know we have a lot of OG Union fans, not to confuse Mario Balotelli. I know there's some people who hope that does happen as he's now out of Serie A, but no, we're talking about the video game / movie. So
yes, yeah. Oh yeah, clearly. But it is really cool to think of brothers, siblings getting a chance to play at the highest level together. I always love those storylines when we see athletes that are professionals that to have a family have the ability to not make one but two and sometimes more than two, superstar talents.
Yeah,
it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
Unfortunately, the city doesn't always get the best sibling, but hey, hopefully we got both now. We got two good siblings
for now.
For now,
but for now, we can at least talk about it because we're focusing on the now. We're not focusing on what might possibly happen in the next 2 years.
That's right, guys. So if you guys haven't seen, obviously the boys were back in the Philly area for a couple of days, which was cool to see. We saw them at Barcelona. I don't know if you're a fan, but I love me the Barcelona Wine Bar down in Passyunk, supporting our local businesses here. But they were chilling there, having a little dinner, and then they returned back to Clearwater. But the big one was Cavan Sullivan. If you guys aren't aware, it is the younger brother of Quinn. A lot of hype surrounding the U.S. youth player. But he's down in Clearwater with Union 2. A lot of speculation even before this moment if Cavan would even possibly by chance get brought up by the senior team because of just the talent that you have seen from him in short glimpses. But this is a little bit of an indication, and everyone's minds are going to start wondering now how close he is. I personally, Renee, he's a little young. I mean, it's a 14-year-old kid. I mean, this is not very, this isn't, Freddie Adu was like over 15 years ago. Like that doesn't really happen too often anymore. And it's just interesting if this would actually happen this year.
It does feel like this could be the time. Listen, with him down at preseason as well, with them, great to see Cavan and Quinn again. this has been exciting. Cavan's been getting a lot of attention from a number of different clubs.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing is it's not just the Union that are hoping he's going to make that next step, and possibly this could be a chance for him to be one of the youngest players across the world that are playing professionally. But he's already been linked to clubs all over in Germany, in France, in Spain, in England. Pep Guardiola has been someone that's been going after him in Man City. That's insane. It's insane to think about. And he's a child. He's 14 years old. I was talking to Tyler about it, producer Tyler Zulli, for the show. The wave into the abyss is hilarious. And I was like, technically, I could be his mom. I'd be a very young mom. I'd be we'd be like, because you could be his dad.
Yeah.
Like we're young.
That's crazy to think about.
He's young enough that we could technically be super cool young parents, but still nonetheless could have. Don't forget that super cool young part. Technically could be his parent. Like I cannot wrap my head around that. And he's this. Listen, the thought process is because he's only 14 that there's going to be time for him to not only mature but to become a whole teenager. Yeah. Get a little bit older, and that by like 16 he might be inking a contract in Europe. So the Union have time for now, at least, to try to lock him in. Quinn is such a huge selling point. I know we talked about on the show before. Quinn is such a huge selling point to be able to keep Cavan here because it's a chance to play with your big brother, familiarity, family, and also to have someone like you want to have somebody that can be that role model and help you ease into the pro life. What better person than Big Brother Quinn? So I'm hoping that that's going to be enough. But I don't think it will be, especially as other clubs, Arsenal, Real Madrid, Man City, as other clubs are continuing to look at him over the years, that I don't know he's going to be able to stay. So, but it's okay because for now we're just going to focus on the fact he's down in Clearwater. That's it.
So Dan brings up a good comment here. If you bring Cavan up and you play him even a little, it will only jack up his transfer market rate. And so, like, Renee, I do think it's extremely important that the Union handle the situation the right way. And that can mean a couple of different things. Like, if he does stay here, obviously managing his development, knowing when to bring him up to the senior team and when not to bring him up to the senior team. And in turn, obviously, you mentioned it. I mean, when Pep Guardiola is talking about you, I mean, it's hard not to be like, wow, Pep and City's talking about me? All right. So it's important for the Union to manage him, be a mentor, and if there is an offer that is legitimate that you just can't refuse, then you're doing it in the right way for Cavan Sullivan as well. So it's going to be important the way the Union do manage this, but it's also important too because Renee, we talked about in previous episodes, this academy does kind of feel like in a standstill in some way because since Brandon and Mark, you got Jack who's improving, Nate who's improving, Quinn, but not taking the helm and grabbing the eyes and the attention of European clubs like Brennan and Mark did in those days. So this is an important time here with this young player in Cavan Sullivan. This is essentially right now, this is the academy, I would say.
This is it. And just to confirm, because I misspoke on Arsenal, but there's a number of clubs that are definitely interested. Some of the front runners, PSG, Real Madrid, Bayern Munich, Dortmund. There's been a lot of names that have come through. Very impressive.
The elite ones.
These are the names that you grew up playing as on FIFA, okay? And now you have a chance to play on in real life. So it's definitely wild to think about at just 14 years old, the amount of attention that he's generating. And Dan, that is a really good point you mentioned about his stock, but I don't know how much you can hide him. I mean, with the U.S. youth national team, with the U15 team, he had a chance to already, like his name is going to be on the map. So in general, just recently with the U.S. youth national team, they went on to win the 2023 CONCACAF Under-15 championships. He also won the Golden Ball. Like, regardless if he gets called up and gets to play up with the U.S., let's say the U17 or U23 national team, or gets to play with the first team for the Union, he's already going to be a name. I know Jim Curtin is saying he definitely has the ability to become a household name among the world's best. Like, he already is going to make a name for himself because he's going to be scoring goals and killing it with the U15 team and have people like, wait a minute, I think he's on a team where he doesn't have much competition, or he's going to be getting called up. So I don't know how much you can hide a talent like that, because at some point his talent is going to shine through and you're going to see him dominating, and it's going to be obvious he's he's overmatched. And I mean, I guess that's the right term. He's way better than everybody else.
Yeah.
Okay. So to see all the things he's doing already and know he's right in our backyard. He's not the first that's been right in our backyard, Christian Pulisic, Brendan Aronson, but definitely more Christian Pulisic. So I feel like right now, if I'm the Union, I don't know. I don't know if I'd want to hide him or just try to show him we're going to, like, not use him, but we're going to give you a great first experience into the pros. We want to get you those first team reps. We know you've got other clubs interested, but we're going to make this. You're not going to be able to keep him if he's really, if he reaches the ceiling of what his talent is showcasing so far, he's not staying with the Union. Yeah. So why not use him as much as you can, if that makes sense? Like, I don't know what they should do.
No, Renee, it's an interesting situation because in reality, we've never really been in this type of situation. Good point. Like, we've had players who have been through this academy, and as time went on, they have improved thoroughly, like you've seen, like we mentioned with Brennan and Mark. But a kid who, the moment he arrived at this academy, you saw the hype. And every single year, he just continues to improve. And, like, his skill level is at like an 18-year-old kid probably, but he's 14. So that's what the tricky part is about. It looks
every bit of 14.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think for the Union, I don't think you put the training wheels on this one. I think it's a unique situation where I think that because you know what the talent is, you have to move with what the talent level is. So if you feel as if he is better than what MLS Next Pro quality is, you have to bring him up.
You have to.
I genuinely believe you have to bring him up. I know he's 14, and I know that that's really young, but I think that you're going to have to bring him up. And the thing is, too, like, these kids, when they are, these kids, when they're with the Union, with the senior team, they could still play for the Union 2 team. I think a two-way player like that early on, because he's obviously not going to get those consistent minutes. So being able to play a little bit with Union 2, getting those consistent minutes, that's going to be the crucial part. That's always the crucial part, too. And that's why you don't want to sell him off possibly a little too early to Europe, because consistent minutes is big. We talked about Paxton Aronson as well.
I think on the other side, something else to keep in mind. I know, Dan, you're mentioning if we try to hide him, there's a chance he never plays for the Union senior squad. So I think even bigger than that, if Cavan Sullivan is really this good, that he has the potential to go play internationally with a club like PSG or Real Madrid, and the Union are keeping him on Union 2, and he's not playing with Union 1, then what happens when he realizes I'm undervalued? You know, there does come a point where athletes feel as though I am not in the best spot for my talent to shine and prevail and take that next step. I'm getting held back, and they don't value me as a talent. They're putting other players ahead of me, regardless how old they are. They're putting other players ahead of me that I'm more talented than. I'm going to go somewhere else where I can thrive and I can be in a team that I can be able to take that next step in my career. So you can't hide him in the sense, if he's deserving and gets to that point where he needs to be on Union 1 for as talented Union 2 is, that's gonna actually push him out the door more. It's kind of like you're trying to hold back a caged bird. Yeah. Like, let him fly. If he's good enough to play in the MLS in a year, he should be playing in the MLS, even if he's only with the Union for that 1 year. And then another club offers him something and he's out the door. But you can't hold him back, because now it's going to leave a sour taste, a bad relationship, a bad experience, because realistically he's going to know, okay, I'm with Union 2, for example, or whatever team he's on, and I'm dominating. I'm not getting challenged. I'm not getting better. I'm going to go somewhere where I can get better. So I personally think, at the end of the day, if his talents are what we are expecting and what everyone's talking about, get him now, whether it's preseason, getting him some time with the first team, or just throughout the course of the season. Like, at least you want to keep him excited and eager about the Union. And even if it's as simple as getting some minutes and practice, some practices here and there, getting a couple times where you get to be rostered with the Union senior squad. And now he's starting to get that taste that, okay, this team wants what's best for me, and they're going to give me opportunities. And so this is a place I can grow as a boy, as a talent, to become whatever that next level is, because you're not keeping him for 10 years. It's not practical. So instead, make this a great experience for everyone. Make sure he's getting challenged and playing at the level he deserves to play at. So I know, Jose, you're saying folks are telling you that he's been incredible with the Union 2. That's all we hear. Yeah. I mean, just like you, Jose, we've all heard that. That's all we keep hearing, is that this is a generational talent. This is a Captain America situation where he can be the next big name in the world, not just with the Union or in the MLS, in the world. And if Cavan Sullivan is really that good, you want him to have a positive experience with the Union that he can look back on. Let's say he's winning World Cups or in 2026 or whatever. You want him to be able to look back and be like, thank you, Philadelphia Union, for helping me take that step in my career, versus it being like, oh, the Union never valued me and I had to get out because I outgrew them.
Yeah.
And he's going to outgrow the Union, but let it be on a positive note versus like they were trying to hold me back.
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
And as we all know, we're trying to create more Cavan Sullivans for the future there. So
bingo.
This is another key piece, another key seed for this youth academy, being able to develop a big talent there. And no, you bring up a lot of good points, and like let's all remember this. This is Philadelphia, so anything is possible technically with this sports town. But like I look at like the situation with his brother. Like he's been here with the senior team for like this going in his third season, and Renee, we still haven't found his position, like his position in the system. Like I think I could tell you that by watching him play, I feel like he's the most comfortable as a winger. But in this system, we haven't really found his per se fit. So that's something to keep in mind. Like different things like that could, like you mentioned, deter a kid away as far as his focus goes and his excitement goes as well. But I think the sky's the limit for Cavan, and I think that for the Union, this is going to be an important piece for us going forward, helping develop young kids. But I'm excited. I want to watch him firsthand. You know, it's always funny too when you see like, you know, I remember when Brendan first came up, like watching like a little kid out there amongst little men, like a little short person out there. So I'm excited to see Cavan firsthand.
In the NWSL, there are players that are 15 years old. On the U.S.
Did Rose
women's
come up as 15? Rose Lavelle?
She was. Oh, I don't know the exact age she was.
Young.
Yeah, but she was very young. But I know like there's Chloe Ricketts, and I know like there's different names that now their youngest players are 15.
It's crazy.
Like it's possible to be a professional athlete and be 15. So the Union. Forget Academy Union too. If he's 14, 15 years old and he's good enough, he should be playing with the Union. Freddie Adu, I know we talk about how long ago that was, but there are plenty of professional athletes that are 14, 15 years old. The Union and the MLS in general, don't be afraid to pull the plug. Like if you feel like this player is good enough, make it happen. And even if he's on the brink of it, make it happen. We're not talking about just moving up because his brother plays with the Union or because he knows someone. No, he's talented enough to be able to play. Guys? Yeah, to be able to play at that level. So there's tons of names. Like again, I know for a fact this past season alone for the NWSL, they had four or five different names. Alyssa Thomas. They had different names. Thompson, excuse me. They had different names that Alyssa Thomas plays in WNBA.
Casey, is that a name? Casey Fair?
I don't know. That name actually sounds familiar too. But you have someone like Alyssa, now her younger sister, who just inked a contract. Like, get those younger talents in, because if they're good enough, having them play in high school, even college, and dominating and not being able to play at a level that challenges them is only going to slow them down. So I do think if you have the opportunity to bring a young player up, go for it. But then also, as you mentioned, you're setting the precedent for future talents that, hey, this is the spot. We're going to foster your talents. We're going to get you better. We're going to get you opportunities to play professionally. I do want to say hello to Will in the chat. Dominic as well. Welcome
What's up, guys?
in. Nice to have you here. I know Jose's saying, to be fair, if the Union can't seal the deal with Vasquez, they have zero hope they can get Cavan. Yeah, that's also an issue too. These players are paying attention. They're paying attention to what's going on in terms of rosters and contracts and signings and what you're paying, just like we're paying attention to it. So they're keeping notice in that sense of what are other guys getting, and it's comps, right? You're comparing what you deserve to what you see others getting to make sure it makes sense for what you want.
Imagine yourself at 15, a professional athlete, no matter what sport it is. That's
insane.
You're like maturing years just off of one career move like that.
That's what I'm like. When I look at even my own career, there's so much, forget just physically the difference at 15 versus like even 18, but the mental maturity level, you really have to be someone that's been from a young age introduced to older experiences. Like having older brothers for Cavan, I'm sure he did have that opportunity, which helps in itself, that you're always playing up. You're always playing older. So now you are maturity-wise on that same level as older players, because that in itself is such a huge difference.
Yeah, we talked about that with Jack McGlynn as
Huge
well,
difference.
with his older
Yes,
brother.
exactly. So
Yeah.
it's definitely a lot that you have to keep in mind. Like physically, can they keep up? Mentally, can they keep up? Even with the rigor of being a professional athlete and the lifestyle and all that just the different experiences, you're traveling more. I think that's a big reason why they don't want him to go internationally until he's a little bit older.
That's
Playing
a
in
lot.
a different culture and in a different country at 14, 15, that's tough.
Yeah.
But there are plenty of people that do it. We've seen plenty of names over the years.
We can only hope that we can keep Cavan Sullivan in Philadelphia. And another thing that we can hope on is that for you guys to check out our sponsor here today, Bagels & Co., ladies and gentlemen. Bagels & Co. have Brooklyn-style bagels, but it is made with that Philly love, ladies and gentlemen. Huge bagels. They are some of the biggest bagels that you can see in Philadelphia, with a large variety of different selections of bagels, 15 to 20 types daily, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure you check that out, as well as their large selection of cream cheeses, 30 different types. And hey, they even have special cream cheeses for special events. We would like to see the Eagles in the Super Bowl this week, but they have different cream cheeses for the Eagles, the Sixers, Flyers. Hopefully we can get one for the Union as well. That blue and gold will definitely look great on a bagel, and it's affordable, which is most important as well. Great quality of bagels. They're huge, but also affordable. You can't find that here in today's day and age, ladies and gentlemen. So Bagels & Co. have you covered there. And of course, right now, ladies and gentlemen, find your local Bagels & Co. spot. www.thebagelsandco.com/store locator to find your closest Bagels & Co. Let them know PHLY sent you. Thank you to our sponsor here today at Bagels & Co.
Yes, and I see in the chat, Dan's talking about Casey Fair. I knew I recognized the name. I couldn't put the name to the face, but she did play with South Korea.
Cool.
She became the youngest woman to play in the World Cup with South Korea, I believe is what I saw.
Okay.
And I
cool.
remember, if I remember correctly, but she now also plays in the NWSL with Angel City. Alyssa Thompson and her sister Giselle does as well. Like, a lot of youth is happening. So a lot of changes are going on. And when you're making changes, you need people you can trust to help protect you, support you, empower you, educate you. And you know who does a good job of that on the house buying front? That's Mortgage CS. Now, over at Mortgage CS, which stands for Mortgage Concierge Service, they do a good job of really connecting with you. They're available 24/7, always accessible to answer any questions you have, talk to you about anything, whether it's asking questions around the Philadelphia Union because they're 2 weeks away from their first official game in the CONCACAF Champions Cup, or maybe they want to talk to you about house buying and what you can do to financially prepare. Mortgage CS is always there for you and does a tremendous job of bridging the gap, trying to alleviate a lot of the stress of buying a house. Now, they're so personable. Their CEO, Ben, even gives you his phone number so you can reach out any time of day, any day for that matter, via call, text. You can reach out at 267-391-7425. Ben is always available to chat with you and encourages you to feel comfortable reaching out, because you can also reach out through email, ben@mortgagecs.com. Again, morning, evening, night, whatever time, to talk Philly sports, to talk mortgage, house hunting. And at Mortgage CS, they want to make sure that when you hear the word mortgage, you think of Ben and Alec, you think of Mortgage CS. They're licensed coast to coast, helping families all over the country, making sure that they can find great rates. They help their clients obtain ultra competitive rates. They compare rates between multiple lenders and do their best to find you a deal that makes the most sense for you and your family. And their top priority is, of course, your financial picture, not their bottom line. So over at Mortgage CS, you can get started today at mortgagecs.com/PHLY. And this advertisement is not a commitment to lend or extend credit. Mortgage CS is an equal housing opportunity mortgage broker. All loans are subject to credit approval. Certain restrictions may apply. Company NMLS ID number 1464766. And you can visit mortgagecs.com for more information.
Absolutely. Awesome stuff. All right, so let's move forward here. Let's talk about this roster. Obviously, we have 2 weeks before we get into some Union soccer. So Renee, Tyler, and I decided that let's start looking at this roster. It's an important one, an important year here. So today, what we're going to look at, we're going to start by looking at the goalkeepers and the defenders of our Philadelphia Union here. So, of course, with our goalkeepers, let's start off, of course, as we all know, I don't need to give much of an introduction, but the brick himself, Andre Blake, is back again for another year in between the pipes here for the Philadelphia Union. Of course, the Union did just sign, we talked about it last week, Oliver Semeli?
Zemla.
Semla. Oliver Semla. We're getting
Zemla.
It's good that you remember that. I like that.
I know that's one that I actually still remember like very vividly. But the only thing that helped me is his name's spelled with an S, but it's pronounced like with a Z. Zemla.
There you go. Oliver Zemla. And then of course Holden Trent is back. Didn't see a lot of Holden Trent. Now, Ray, with this position, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Obviously, Andre Blake is the best goalkeeper in the MLS. We can argue in MLS history another day. He has been the one consistent of this team since Jim has been there. When you look at this position, you know what it is with Andre, but it's always like, okay, what does it look like after? What does the future hold with this position? And obviously last year it was about the backup role. There was a lot of angst amongst the fan base with Joe Bendick when he had to, fill in for Andre Blake when he was out, whether it was injury or whether it was international break. And now it looks like Oliver Zemla, it may take that role. I wouldn't say that's cemented because I still think that there's something in Holden Trent, but Zemla's experience alone, it grants him the edge right now as the backup goalkeeper behind Andre Blake. But it's an important position because we talked about it last week. There's a lot of CONCACAF competitions. There is the Copa America as well this year. And so it's important that you have that backup role here. It's vital.
Yeah, and that's the biggest thing. I know we, ironically, right before Oliver got picked up by the Union, we're talking about, wait a minute, with all this conversation we had at that point, it was still, Ali Bedoya was still a question mark. We were talking a lot about if they were going to add into the attack. And many of us kind of forgot about talking goalkeeper. Yes, the Union still need more in their attack, and they still do. But that's not, when I actually look at it, the biggest priority was a goalkeeper. Yeah. Because it doesn't matter how great your team is. If you don't have a goalkeeper, the goal is like your foundation of your house. If your house is built on a solid foundation, you're great. If your house is built on quicksand, not so great. And so knowing Andre Blake is getting older, going to miss games, he's human. He's not going to be able to play every single game, every single minute. And not to mention, as you mentioned, the international schedule with Jamaica is going to naturally cause for some conflicts. Then what? This is a team that has playoff, expectations, hoping to be able to get further in the playoffs, hoping to be able to get back to the MLS Cup, all these high expectations, but it starts in net. So the signing of Oliver Zemla gives me some hope because, of course, as we've been talking through, and I know we'll do a specific breakdown of the different goalies, Holden Trent doesn't give you a lot of, you just don't know. Andrew Rick, Francesco Montali, there's just none of these names we were sold on. I know we talked about Matt Freese and different names that have come over through the years, even a Joe Bendick. Good or bad, you at least had a chance to kind of figure out who fits and who doesn't fit. It felt like with goalie, we haven't had that chance to do that outside of, we know Andre is the GOAT. We all love Andre, but then what? So I'm happy that Oliver's been signed. I'm excited to see what Oliver does. I know so far in the preseason scrimmages, of course, there's a couple more coming up for the Union. So far, they've had a chance to get other goalies minutes, which has hopefully given them a chance to see what that depth chart looks like. But as you mentioned, we know who's sitting at the top. It's without a doubt Andre Blake. No questions, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Martian Lynch, what's up, buddy? Nice to have you here.
I appreciate that, man.
LPZ.
That's going on, man. How you doing? I love this comment section. It's funny because Will's going, Cavan's next Freddie do, and then Dan goes right away, let's hope not. Yeah, let's hope
That made me chuckle because I'm like, yes. And then you have like the comments of, Tyler Zulli is a generational talent behind the wheel of the show, and LPZ. You guys are right. It's all about them. Y'all are the ones that are rolling this thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, if we can be any type of critical with Andre Blake, look, the amount of matches is something we constantly kept talking about. And I wonder how much, in fact, it did affect Andre because, you're relying on him for almost every single match as well. There was a couple goals at the end. And, Renee, we talked about after the Inter Miami match when the fact that there was goals even in that match where, you're like, that's not Andre. Andre would never let that happen. And so it's important to, I would just say, take some pressure, I'll say. Take some pressure off of Andre. Alleviate, sorry.
That's fine, I got you. I'm here. Words.
Thank you to Renee. But it's
Your other
important
brain
to
half.
take some pressure off of Andre Blake for that reason in particular there and at the end of the season. So just watching just the team in general through all these matches you're going to have again this year, that's something I'm just going to keep an eye out for. If we're going to be critical of Andre or something, it's some of those goals that he did allow at the end of last year. So,
and that's a really good point, JP, because when you think about Inter Miami especially, but there were, as you mentioned, other goals. Goalkeepers have the expectation of making all the saves they're supposed to, plus one superstar incredible save. That's what every goalkeeper coach that I've ever talked to has mentioned. And so with Andre, to see him at times get snuck near post or a shot from distance that bounces a couple of times, that catches him off guard, it was very uncharacteristic of Andre Blake and kind of was worrisome because it's like, wait a minute now, what's happening with Andre that he's giving up these goals that he's just not ready for? He's out of position, his footing's not right, and that's not the Andre Blake that we know. But as you mentioned on the reverse side, there's a couple factors. There's a lot of games you're logging. You're also just getting older. I mean, Andre Blake drafted, that was back in 2014. He's in his early 30s. He's at 33 years old. He's logged a lot of minutes in the MLS as well as internationally. So you're just getting that physical fatigue. And then even the pressure, as we talked about this year, the Union gave up much more goals that we've seen in the past. And with that also comes a natural wear and tear on your body because every time the ball's hitting the back of the net and you're getting scored on as a goalie, as much as we know it's not just on goalies, it has to go through the whole team. It takes the whole team to lose. All the cliches, it still hurts for a goalie to give up goals. And for this past season for Andre Blake, to see the amount of, and I'm trying to find the exact total numbers that were given up. That's in itself is something that can be a frustrating point. That crap, I'm not playing like myself. I feel like I'm letting my team down. I'm struggling a little bit more. And I would love to see him have time to maybe rest and take some of that pressure off him, as you talk about, like taking some of that pressure off of him. Because in 2023, in the MLS specific regular season games given up, that he played, to give up and have a 72 save percentage, I should say, which is a dip for him. It's not a huge dip, but it is a dip for him. He had, a 79 save percentage just the year prior. And so overall, we just are naturally seeing the regression for him because there's more pressure. There's more on the back line. There's more on him as a result. And Andre Blake deserves, just like everybody else, to have that backup option where it's not all on him.
But it would be nice in general. Like, I don't want to go full like NHL, but like, I see in Europe and we're not there yet with these European teams either, but like these big European teams who have multiple different competitions, they have different goalkeepers that they can kind of rely on to kind of interchange and have a little bit of a rotation. I'm not saying like having, Holden Trent one match, Andre Blake the next match, but it would be nice like every third or fourth match with the congested schedule you're going to see this year, having a backup that you can rely on for a spot start right there. And the Union, honestly, since Matt Freese haven't had that, and even when Matt Freese was here, he really didn't rely on that either. And it would just be nice because I feel like, there are matches where, Andre may see like 5 or 6 shots because the Union defense is just that style and, the attack of the other team may not be on their game. But it just would be nice to have Andre fully refreshed and relaxed, not playing the last match and going 100% in the next match. It's something we haven't really been able to enjoy with Andre here.
No, that's a really good point. It definitely is. Like you mentioned, you don't need that like goalkeeper 1 and 1A and 1B where they're fully just sharing and splitting time because that's not something that you see at the professional level and even need. But you would like to get it to a point where there's more of an opportunity for Andre Blake every once in a while. You've played a lot, you've been working hard, we see you, and we're going to give you a break. And we're going to let, this game, you're not going to play in this game, whoever the other goalie is going to get the start instead. So I'm all for that. The fact that they gave up 41 goals this past season in the regular season, I'm not talking about all games. Right. I'm not calculating all that right now. A lot of goals were given up. Not all those were against Andre Blake, but Andre definitely needs, this is the time. Again, 33 years old, has played a lot of matches. This is the time to start to prepare for also who he's going to be passing the torch off to whenever his retiring time comes. It shouldn't be soon, knock on wood. But at some point, Father Time is going to start to slow him down.
Always happens.
And naturally, we're going to need to start to prepare for life after. Who's that next goalkeeper? So hopefully Oliver can be that guy. So on the depth chart in terms of goalkeepers, are you putting Oliver number 2 behind Andre?
I would say so
expectation?
because of just simply because of experience. Holden just does not have enough professional experience. College does not count, in my opinion. But that is something that we're going to. So I guess when we're at the end of the season and we're looking back at the season, Renee, when I'm looking at this position, I want to know: did we find ourselves a second goalkeeper?
Yeah.
And so we'll see if we can answer that at the end of this season.
Again, Oliver Zemla was the best goalkeeper in the USL.
Right.
He did have a tremendous season. He's 25. He's at a great point in his career, as we talked about when the news happened that the Union signed him at 6'3", 201. He has proven himself with the USL. He has had a number of clean sheets. I think it was 11 or 12, if I find it in a quick moment. 13. I was close. 13 shutouts that he had in the USL with Louisville, as well as 72 saves in 34 appearances, and set a record for the most clean sheets earned as a rookie. So any goalie that's setting records in their rookie year and getting clean sheets, especially last year, Andre Blake's clean sheet number from 2022 to 2023 dropped in half nearly in the regular season I'm talking about. So it's hard to keep a clean sheet. It's hard to keep that consistency. It's hard to keep your save percentage up, especially year after year. And I'd love to see Andre's clean sheets, save percentage get moved back in the right direction. So hopefully Oliver Zemla can step in a couple of games and be able to help manage the workload.
Yes.
So number 2, and then I would definitely put Holden number 3 after that. And at this point, it's pretty much it. But for
Union too.
Yeah, for the rest of Andrew and Francesco, they're just 4 and 5.
We'll see
side by side.
We'll see their development in Union too, and we can talk about them at the end of the season. But
exactly.
We can criticize these guys, Renee, but if they don't get the help in front of them with that back line, it's not going to matter. So let's talk about these backliners here. So obviously, Jamir Berdicio, we don't really have per se his position. He's still listed as a defender, and what we've seen in preseason, he seems to be a defender. We have Aloithu Makahanya. We have Isaiah LaFleur, Jack Elliott, Nate Harriel, Jakob Glazes, Kai Wagner, Olivier Bizo, Matt Rial, and Damian Lowe. This has been a unit, another one that has just been consistently well. I mean, 2 years ago, we had 3 of the 4 finalists for MLS Defender of the Year.
Which is insane.
And then, you're talking about Andre's numbers, but Renee, in general, it felt like the star players of this team, the strong unit of this team, all their numbers have declined in 23 compared to what it was in 22. And a lot of the goals that you did mention, a lot of it had to do as well with just the team defense. I don't even blame it too much on Andre, but just team defense in general. Obviously, Kai back is big on the pitch, because obviously what he was able to do on the pitch for the past couple years. You bring back Jakob, you bring back Jack. But more importantly, Nate Harriel takes another year, another step. He took a big step last year. The expectation is he's going to take over that starting job this year. And so this back line, I don't see many weaknesses whatsoever, Renee.
Yeah. And it's so there's a couple things here. And actually, it's wild when you think about it, because for the regular season, again, I'm not looking at Leagues Cup or CONCACAF or playoffs. The Union were top 10 in goals against. They actually had the best and the lowest number of goals against, finishing in the top 10, and then top 10 in goals for. So as much as we even criticize, I know we'll get to the attack, but as much as we even talk about them taking a step back and having a regression defensively, they still had a better goals against to goals for breakdown than 2/3 of the league. This is a team that defensively gave up the fewest numbers of goals, despite having what feels like a defensively rough season at times. It's just the timing of the goals and how the goals happened is where definitely when you take a look at that, where you're not happy with the types of goals that they gave up. But again, overall, the Union defensively still one of the best units in the league in terms of goals against and even shutouts. So for that sake, we sometimes may be so close to covering them and get lost in the sauce, so to speak, that we're forgetting the fact that, okay, this is still one of the best teams defensively. And as you mentioned, having 3 players that finish as finalists for Defensive Player of the Year speaks volumes to this group, and they're still here. So I think the defense is and has continued to be the strength of this team, because you look across the back line, and these are guys that not only clubs around the MLS, but all over the world, would be interested in picking up a Kai Wagner, a Jacob Glesnes, a Jack Elliott. So the depth is best on the defense for that alone, because it's very telling that as much as we put pressure on the back line and how they need to be better, they also are still one of the best when it comes down to game time. And you know what else is the best when it's game time? It's the Game Time app. So over the Game Time app, you can download it today and take advantage of the fact they've got great prices for tickets for anything: concerts, comedy shows, games, whatever it is that you're looking to attend. Over the Game Time app, they will give you great prices. I was actually just on the Game Time app the other day looking up concert tickets that I'm trying to go to. And they also allow you to take advantage of a couple different factors. With the code PHLY, for one, you get a $20 discount. So use that code PHLY. You get $20 off of your purchase of your tickets. They also allow you to be able to see your seats. So now with the Game Time app, you have a nice view of where you're going to be seated. So you can have an idea of where you and your friends are going to be watching that game, singing along at that concert, laughing at that comedy show. And then they do a great job of having everything in the app. So now when you show up, you have a chance to be able to have the tickets right there on your phone, scan them at the door, get in, and have a fun time. So download the Game Time app, and as a first-time user, again, be able to take advantage of the code PHLY to get $20 off your purchase and have fun at that comedy show, concert, event, game, whatever it is that you and your friends are looking to attend. So JP, as we're talking to the defenders, there's a lot of question marks. You know, what's going to happen with Isaiah LaFleur's injury? What's going to happen with someone like Olweithu on the back line as a center back? What's going to happen with even Matt Real, who's been struggling to stay healthy? It's a lot of question marks on the bottom of the depth chart for the defense, but across the top, you know what you're locked in as, because of the fact that bringing back Kai Wagner locks him as an outside back. Jacob and Jack are a lock for center back. Damien's a lock for that next step as your center back. If you need a 3-back, he slots right in. And then with the way that Nate Harrell's been playing, of course, without a doubt, is truly that other outside back and can play on both sides if needed to maybe make an adjustment, give some minutes. Then, Mbaizo can come in and he can go to the other side or whatever. You've got options there. So it's at least encouraging that although we may have question marks as we move up the field with what the attack needs to do to refine their side, defensively, this unit is solid.
Yeah, no, the real questions are the depth, and mainly on the left and mainly after Damien Lowe.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously the Isaiah injury news definitely does suck. Matt Real, the thing is that when healthy, you know what you're going to get from him in the attack, but there's still those issues in defense with him.
Yes.
So that's definitely something I'm curious to see if they consider. I mean, you do have until April, but if not, do you consider that at the summertime, finding some type of option there? Leon Flock is technically another option you could do at the left back. That's something that they've done before.
That's a good point, because we haven't even talked about. I know we mentioned it a little bit that Leon Flock was an outside back.
Right, he's versatile in that. I'm not a huge fan of that idea, but it's an option that you can do. Another one option I'm not a big fan of, honestly, Renee, is having Nate play at the left. I know he can do it. I know he's willing to do it. But again, like the same thing with Leon, when you put those options out on the left, you do kind of miss out on an attacking prowess. I know, like, it's so hard to replace Kai even within this league, but you do miss out on that when you have a Nate a player like Nate in there, or a Leon Flock in there. And then I'm curious to see if we're gonna find anything about Aloethu Makanyu. We got him last summer. So he's now had a full offseason to integrate himself not only with the club, but the city as well. And so I'm curious to see what steps he takes this year. And like we always talk about, Renee, no matter what young center back's coming through here, you are learning from some of the best within this league, whether it be Jack or Jakob. But not even that, you got Andre Blake right behind you, giving you that tutelage as well. So I'm really curious to see what he will do. Obviously, Nate taking that next step is something I want to see happen. And then just Olivier, really, what's going to happen with transfer? Because last year, we all know he requested for a transfer. Obviously, family is the most important thing. So if he can't be with his family, I think it's right for him to be wherever he can play with his family there beside him. But those are the real question marks. But Yeah, like I said, you nailed it too. Although this team in general and a lot of stats, excuse me, they took a step back, they still defensively were really good. And,
Mm-hmm.
there was like that spurt in that summer, like even like the Inter Miami match, where they were allowing, one too many goals that they usually do. I remember that Toronto match in early September too, where they went
Yeah.
up Toronto and they looked bad. But as it got closer to playoffs, and when we were in playoffs, defensively, it looked like last year. It looked like 22. Like they
Mm-hmm.
didn't miss a step whatsoever. So I think again that this back line is going to continue showing why Union soccer is the best as far as defense goes in this league. That's going to be a
Mm-hmm.
lot of fun.
Well,
Appreciate
here's some interesting stuff actually, because now I'm just going on a whole stat deep dive, which we're doing our depth chart. And Kyle, Jose, Martian, Dan, Will, whoever's here, thanks for being here. Hit that thumbs up button. Feel free to join the conversation. As we're looking at the depth for the defense, and we're just now eyeing the defense specifically, as mentioned, best in the top 10 for goals against in 2023 for the regular season, as well as shots against. So it's not just about Andres making saves. It's also they're not giving up shots. So as much as it may feel like the defense, again, took a step back, still top of the league in shots against, as well as even clean sheets, as I mentioned, where they did have a total of 10 regular season clean sheets and shutouts. And that's also top of the league. Save percentage is kind of middle of the pack. But overall, just a lot of in interceptions, led the league in the regular season in interceptions. That's takeaways. That's steals. You're playing good defense. You win the ball. You go out the other way. This penalty kicks given up. Same thing. The amount of PKs they gave up. So there are a lot of things that we kind of take for granted because we want more. Obviously, we want more. We want the best for the Philadelphia Union as we're covering them and talking about them, and we want to see them progress and get better. But overall, defensively, this unit is the backbone of this team, and they are very talented, and they are leading the league in a number of defensive categories. So now it's time, okay, maintain that, or even maybe if you can improve it, which is never a bad thing, maintain that, and let's see what happens if they can refine some other pieces offensively. I do think defensively, as much as that starting back four is locked in, you still, as you mentioned, want to get Matt Rial, Olivier Mbaizo. Like, let's get that part figured out too, because as we're talking about with Andre, it's the same thing with the backs. These are guys that are playing typically 90 minutes. Mm-hmm. You're not taking out, Glassness and Elliott unless one of them is injured, or you're switching to a 3-back and maybe now Danielo's coming in. You're not really rotating your backs. So you know what the top 3 center backs are. Let's solidify the outside backs and how they are also going to need, as the course of the season progresses, somebody else to be able to step in when needed. Maybe Kai needs a break, and now you're gonna have Mbaizo and Harriel that are getting the start. Maybe it's Nate that needs a break. So I'd love to have, if Matt can stay healthy, if Mbaizo can stay here, stay healthy, and really step up his game a little bit, and maybe one other piece. I don't know who that's gonna be. Again, if LaFleur is gonna be out. Is it Berdesio? I don't know. Is it, like you mentioned, Leon Flack? Sometimes, to swing to the outside back.
It's a big question mark.
That's something that you need to have some options there, because defense is not a role you can play around with. And you need to get that right. And you need to have depth there as well. That's steady. And I think, to me, what I've always noticed, JP, is the backup defenders are usually your traditional stay-at-home defenders. Like Nate and Kai are comfortable flying up the flank, getting into the attack, and then also, of course, are great defenders. Yeah. Even as Dan, you're talking about the midfielders. Same thing. Like, you need those solid midfielders or outside backs, and we'll get to the midfield as we progress up the field later this week. You need those outside backs that are solid at getting up and down the park. Those are usually your starting outside backs. But your backup back doesn't have to be anything flashy.
Right.
You just need a steady outside back that can just defend, not make mistakes, cover, slide in where they're supposed to slide in, and just be consistent. So I would love for them to just have that consistent just guy, whoever that is. It could be Matt Rial. It could be Mbaizo. Mbaizo likes to get up the park too, though.
Yeah,
but you just need that steady, consistent backup defender.
Yeah. With that, my biggest question here, And kind of to what Dan's saying as well. So, to what Dan's saying, underrated the role of the midfield in winning back possessions to keep the
That is
back
their
line from
role,
seeing many
period.
shots. So, with that,
Definitely.
Renee, we saw the integration, a lot of the 5 in the back, 3 in the back, however you want to call it. Damian Lowe saw a lot of minutes there. Now, you ran that because that was the best way you could put the best 11 out there throughout the season with injuries and scheduling and whatnot. But like Dan said, you do kind of lose that compactness of the midfield because you don't have that 4 in the middle. Now, my question is, how much Jim will rely on that 5 in the back? You should be healthy. You should be able to rely on your main starting 11, and I don't think Damien should be included in that as well. So I'm curious how many times Jim is going to be able, or how many times he will put out that 5 in the back this year. If he has to.
My concern with the 3-back is the same issue though, JP. If Damian Lowe, if you're gonna run with a 3-back, who is that 4th option for your 3-back? Because it's not Kai or Nate. It shouldn't be. They should be those. They can be those outside flank players.
Yeah, Kai and Nate should be outside solely.
Yeah, with a 3-back, you have to play that with 3 personalities that are truly center backs. Because that's their rotations and movements. It's literally 3 center backs. So I actually think, not only selfishly do I just dislike the 3-back system, I just don't think they have the depth for that, because now that's all way through as your backup option. You actually lose flexibility there, because having a 4-back, a traditional back 4, now Damien can step into center back and he's your plug and play piece. But if you want to go 3-back for the consistent part of the season, that's a lot of minutes on those 3.
Yeah.
That's a lot of minutes on those 3. So I don't know. It's a tough thing, because I know the Union like to play with a 3-back, but I don't think it's a system that makes sense for them long term.
Yeah, no. I mean, like, if you're fully healthy, I genuinely don't really want to see it. I understood why Jim, and you know what? I'll give this too. Like, I was happy Jim did that, because honestly, Renee, like, that was the most tactical flexibility I saw in a while from Jim, and just going from a 4-4-2 diamond to a 3-5-2, like, it was nice. But in the end, teams kind of figured that out as well, and I just don't think it's a viable option. If you're fully healthy, I think there's better options. And the 4 in the midfield, that compact diamond midfield, like Dan says, it's the bread and butter. It works well with the personnel you have.
Yeah, and we'll definitely, as we progressing it closer to the start of the season, for you guys that are tuned in, either live with us or listening back on podcast platforms, JP, Tyler, and I are going to continue rolling through the depth chart by positions group. So we already knocked out goalkeepers. We'll give our official depth chart for center backs and outside backs before we next show. We'll move up the pitch and get into midfielders and then forwards in terms of the attack. So center backs, JP, are pretty straightforward.
Right.
There's nothing. There's nothing here.
Jack, the right too is kind of the question. Is it fully Nate time, or do we?
For outside backs?
Yeah, sorry, for right back. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Because center back is locked down. Yeah. Jack, Jacob, Damien, all the way through. I mean, Jacob and Jack are side by side. But outside back, yes, it's definitely Kai. And then you're saying, is it a question of is Mbaizo's next or Harriel's next? I think.
Is it Harriel's position full time?
Right.
Or are we going back to, like, because it's been pretty much a rotation the last few years.
That's a good point.
So is it full? Because I personally, it's Nate's job. It's Nate's role. Olivier's the backup. But I get it. Especially Jim seeing stuff there in practice. Jim is very keen on Olivier. All these years I've wondered, Olivier's allowing these terrible defensive assignments. How is he still getting consistent minutes? And he keeps putting him out there. And you know what's funny is he responds every single time. Olivier does respond out there. But at this point, I do think that it is Nate's job. I think it's his side of the pitch.
Yeah, I think it's a 70-30 split, or maybe even more like a 60-40. I don't think it's a 100% role for Nate. Like, I think Kai, it's his role until he needs a break, or if he's got a nagging injury or anything. I think Nate, because of just his youth, I think it's almost too much to put all of it, like, go, you've got the keys, drive. But I would like him to consistently be the starter. And then maybe similar to actually what we talked about with goalies for, like, hockey, for example. But I think Nate's role could be every so games, Olivier gets to start and Nate gets a breather, just to keep him fresh and just to keep him mentally fresh. Because when you're that young, I think you physically have less mileage on the tank. You can
That's
go.
right.
But it's the mental aspect of needing to be tapped in every single day as a starter versus when you come off the bench and you just bring this surge of energy and you're just happy to be there. Versus this is my role and I gotta keep it, I gotta earn it, and I can't make a mistake. So I like the idea of Nick being the everyday starter with just a little bit more flexibility that every once in a while Olivier gets to start too. So I think you're right. Kai, Nate, Olivier, and then Matt from there, and
we still got to figure out about Perdicio as well.
Yeah,
we don't really know much.
If he's going to be an outside back for them or
midfield.
Not.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
But Renee, as we move forward here, so Thursday we'll look at forwards and midfielders for this club. Before we sign off today, we did want to look around some of the stuff that's going on around the league. Renee, did you get your tea ready? Because it was juicy this weekend with some of the news. I want to end with the juiciest one, but let's start off with some of the other ones.
Save the best for last.
Oh my God, Tom Bogart's RIP to his hand, because it's constantly tweeting away all this news. But so real quick, I wanted to start off with Chicago. I know a lot of people don't like to hear the fact that other teams are spending money, but Chicago again is spending money. I don't know if it's good money or not, but they signed away from Ghent in Belgium. I guess Hugo Kupiers. He's a forward. It's get this, $12 million transfer fee, $12 million in add-ons. This is the 5th most expensive deal in MLS history. And they also bought Shaqiri like 2 seasons ago from Liverpool. That's insane. Chicago's dishing all this money to compete for the wooden spoon again this year.
Oh my gosh.
Absolutely incredible.
Repeat the number one more time for the people in the back.
12 million plus 2 million in add-ons. I do not know much about Hugo Kupiers. Ghent is a big club in Belgium. So I would assume that I would hope the guy scores goals if Chicago's dishing this money for him.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, I'm sorry, but this is the stuff that's happening around the league.
Ooh, yeah. I mean, as you mentioned, it's Kuipers.
Kuipers, thank you.
Is how I believe it's said.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a lot of dough. That's a lot of dough. Chicago Fire. Wow, spent a lot of money there. And Kuipers is 26, so still on the younger side. He was one of the most productive. I'm just looking up some of his stats now. One of the most productive strikers in the league. He had 64 goals, 25 assists in 126 matches across all competitions. He did have the Jupiler Pro League Golden Boot after having 34 goals in 56 appearances across all competitions. He had 20 goals in 33 league matches. I mean, he's averaging almost a goal a game.
Almost a goal a game.
So that's the expectation for the Fire, is spending money, which is not always a bad thing. Take notes, some teams.
Yeah.
Spend some money. Spending money to bring in a goal scorer that is proven, that is established at 26 years old, that is ready to play in the MLS. And as you mentioned, this is definitely a historic signing for the Fire and for the MLS as well, because those are numbers that we don't see often in soccer. Not in the MLS, at least.
Here's the worst part about it for Union fans, because Chicago didn't need this. They did not need more goal scoring. What they needed was defense, midfield stability. Instead, they spend all their money on another striker who they probably can't get the ball to, and they're on the other end, they're going to allow like 6 goals a match. So this is kind of like the double-edged sword. Like, obviously, Chicago is spending money, but they're not spending it in the intelligent way. And so Chicago is going to compete for wooden spoon, and we're going to be competing for Eastern Conference. But because we don't have the spending power, or all the spending power that a team like Chicago has, we're going to probably be watching MLS Cup from our couch, but we'll wait to see.
Oh, gosh.
We'll wait to see here.
Oh,
but,
my Lord.
A little bit of a small one, but it's Union related. Serbian top flight club FK Novi Pazar signed American winger Luciano Sanchez. He's 19 years old. He was actually in the Union Academy. That's right. He was with RBNY's Academy as well. He had 5 goals and assists last year with the MLS Next Pro team here in Philadelphia. So we have a Unionite on his way to Serbia.
And then also Joseph Martinez signed with CF Montreal. So
we probably want to hear in Philly.
CF Montreal brings in one of the most prolific strikers that the league's ever seen in Joseph Martinez, who has the 9th most goals in MLS history. How's that for a signing to bring in one of the biggest names in league history for scoring goals?
I like that.
That's a type of, that's it. That's it.
That.
Like, I don't want to be a beggar or chooser or picky in that sense. But, you know, if I had to think of a great signing, to me, somebody that's maybe a little bit on the older end or whatever you want to call them, that is top 10 in goal scoring. But just someone that, as we read all these names, these are goal scorers, and these are teams that are maybe even Chicago, for example. Instead of saying, "Hey, we need to solidify our defense, we're gonna just make every game a shootout and get all these prolific scores." I do think you need defense. I believe in that. I'm not gonna say go get all the best scores, but you know, it's nice to see other teams making these signings for forwards and midfielders that are proven goal scorers.
And a team like Montreal 2 years ago, they were top of the East, or they were second in the Eastern Conference. They had a magical season, get upset in the second round, and then that off season they tore it all apart. Will Nancy goes to Columbus, everyone else disperses. And then they did a good job this year of building it up. They have a good young team, and then you add a veteran player like Joseph Martinez. You gotta love what's going on in Montreal. Before we get to the juicy one, so they announced yesterday this weekend some of the matches that are going to transpire for the World Cup. Some of the sites.
Oh, I almost forgot this actually. Wow.
Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. You're going to get 6 World Cup matches in 2026. 6 opportunities to show how effing awesome you guys are for 6 matches. I'm excited. Hopefully Colombia gets one of those, Renee. But
and I love this matches. Because first of all, 2026 is going to be an incredible time.
Oh, my God.
Especially in Philly. Obviously, it's a celebration, 250 years since the signing of the Declaration of Independence. So there's going to be there's a lot of sports that are going to be bringing their biggest, events to Philly, especially the summer of 2026. Major League Baseball is having All-Star Week is going to be in Philly that same time. That'll be happening, as well as we know, the round of 16 games for the World Cup are strategically scheduled to be here in Philly between June 14th and July 4th. It is entertaining because it's a FIFA event and not a U.S. event. They actually cannot refer to the stadiums by their sponsored stadium name.
That's right.
So instead of the Lincoln Financial Field, it is Philadelphia Stadium instead of Gillette Stadium, even though they're an hour away. It's Boston Stadium. I believe MetLife is going to be New York, New Jersey Stadium.
Oh, no.
I know, because they can't choose, even though it's clearly located in New Jersey. But they want to be New York. Everything has to be New York so bad, and I get it. New York's kind of a big deal. Sarcasm is there because it's very much a big deal. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot of these city stadiums that we're seeing. So 6 matches. And what makes it better is I know there were some numbers that came out. Meg Kane, who's the host of the city executive for Philadelphia, because there's a lot of point people behind the scenes making this happen, said that the World Cup matches are viewed regularly by 200 million people. And for perspective, the Super Bowl routinely gets about 115 million around the world. That's pre-TS, by the way. I'm sure those numbers are pre-Taylor Swift if you're missing those initials, but about 115. So the World Cup, as we already know, by no surprise to us, but for anybody that may have been sleeping on the World Cup, gets almost twice as much in terms of viewership as the Super Bowl. And now they get that viewership, ticket sales, fandom, excitement in our backyard.
It's going to be awesome.
Woo!
I can't wait for 2026. All right, so the last bit of tidbit, guys, this is the juiciest one of them all.
Juicy.
Oh, man. So everyone say a prayer to Duncan McGuire because he's been going through hell over the last week. So if you haven't been catching on, there's a potential sale for him to Blackburn Rovers over in, I think they're in the championship right now. It's been going back and forth. Was it going to happen or not? It looked like it was going to happen, but get this, for all my NFL fans, the AJ McCarron situation happened. Blackburn forgot to submit the paperwork. They forgot to hit. It was simple as just hitting a button, and they forgot to send that through. So now Duncan is again waiting in limbo. From my understanding, there is going to be a hearing on Thursday. So maybe for our Thursday show, we'll have a conclusion to this matter. But they're going to review, see if, in fact, Blackburn was in the right or not. But there's a possibility that Duncan, who, let's be honest, probably was so excited after a stellar rookie season last year, gets all these rumors to Europe, has the opportunity to go to Europe, and Blackburn couldn't submit paperwork. In the midst of all that, Orlando City was preparing for his replacement, Luis Muriel, another Colombian's coming to the MLS from Atalanta, 32 years old. He signed today on a 1-year deal, about, I think it was $1 million, if Tom Bogart said that correctly. But more importantly, I just feel for Duncan. Like, this is such a terrible, dysfunctional situation. My God.
It's bad. It's really bad. It's not Drake. Your nudes have leaked bad, but it's very bad. I'm sorry. Somebody just texted me about it and reminded me about Drake's nudes, and now I'm like distracted. And no, I'm not looking at them. I'm just it just reminded me of what's going on. So it could always be worse, Duncan. It could always be worse. But at the end of the day, you didn't hit submit. Now somebody hit submit on those nudes, and we wish that we could reverse that. But you didn't hit submit, and now you're dealing with all this chaos and controversy because you didn't hit submit. I just cannot. In 2024, where you have the ability to sign things digitally, you don't even have, forget the whole, like, I'm going to have to fly in and ink my signature and manually mail something and wait until the owl drops the letter off. You have the ability to do so much so quickly. We can do everything at our fingertips. And yet somehow Duncan McGuire, in this opportunity, in this loan to Blackburn, everything gets fumbled. The bag's been fumbled. So this quote unquote administrative error is just unbelievable, and it's wild. But I'm glad that it's getting talked about and called out, because these things are not acceptable. And in 2024, we will not stand for these types of oopses of like, oh, I had everything ready to go and just did not hit submit.
And then and honestly, the loser always is Duncan, and he shouldn't be.
It's a shame.
He deserves this move here. And if you're Duncan, do you even want to go to Blackburn now? Like that?
I don't even. Yeah, that's the other thing. Is this a blessing in disguise? I mean, I don't know. Do they want him? Like, again, if you really want someone bad enough, you don't forget.
Yeah.
Like, you don't forget to hit submit there. You don't forget to, like, you make sure all the paperwork's done. You make sure you take time to look over everything. Of course, you know how talented Duncan McGuire is, and we don't have to speak on that. But, like, if you want to add a goal scorer and a player that's going to come in and really help your club be better, you do your due diligence. So that was very lax and very unfortunate for Duncan McGuire. And I'm glad everybody's calling this out so it can get remedied as quickly as possible.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on. Hopefully we'll have some more. So if the hearing does not go in Blackburn and Duncan's favor, he will be returning back to Orlando. So that probably wouldn't be the worst case scenario for Orlando right now, who honestly, we're going to do our predictions for the season next week. But I mean, Orlando right now is looking like one of my favorites of the Eastern Conference. But yeah. We'll look to see. Renee, anything else before we sign off here today? It's for the beautiful people listening and watching.
No, just make sure you don't accidentally send nudes. And
Internet's
make
forever,
sure
guys.
And then make sure you do submit for any paperwork. Don't submit the nudes, but do submit the paperwork. That's what we take from this.
Day.
Pay attention to what you're clicking and sending. But no, I'm excited for us to keep diving into the Union's depth chart and all the other soccer news that we'll be talking through in the upcoming weeks, because games are here, JP.
I'm excited.
Woo!
We back at the Super before you know it, guys.
Juicy.
I love it.
I always love that note.
They're going to hate us. They're like, they don't really talk much soccer, but it's funny.
And on that note, wrap us up then.
All right, guys, that's going to do it for another edition of PHLY Union Podcast. Thank you so much for tuning on in. Guys, if you're watching live, do us a solid. It doesn't take much. Just hit that like button. We truly appreciate it. If you enjoyed this content and all the other content we talk about, we do all Philly sports here at PHLY. Hit that subscribe button. Subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Tyler's really behind the glass. Renee Washington. I go by the name of JP Zapata. You stay juicy, Philadelphia. Dude.
We all silly like the mayor.